Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Stephen Ross, who's the CEO of Ross Insurance Brokers and a Dave Ramsey trusted provider. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
Hey, so I'm looking forward to learning from you because I always like to say that no matter who I talk to and what industry that you're in, there's always these learning nuggets from people's personal and professional backgrounds. So it's really such a great time to talk to each other as a business professional. So give us a little bit of your story. What's your background and what's your entrepreneurial journey up to this point in your career?
Yeah, I've actually been in the industry in insurance now for almost 25 years. I originally started in, believe it or not, in New Zealand. That's where I was born and raised. And I never dreamed that I would end up here in America working with insurance. But with my dad being in the military, being a U.S. citizen, I saw that America was a great opportunity to help so many families in the area of insurance because insurance, let's face it, it's complicated, confusing. And what I love doing is when I first started working in this area, I just love sitting down with a family and just having a conversation and find out, hey, where are you at? And finding simple, common sense solutions, with that. And that's something that I love with Dave Ramsey. He always talks about common sense knowledge. And when we have the education and knowledge of insurance, we can apply the principles of common sense that Dave Ramsey talks about and help those families get into a better situation. And that's part of our vision here at Ross Insurance Brokers and helping so many different families right throughout the country.
Yeah, so I followed Dave Ramsey for years and years myself, and I know you've been involved with his organization for many years. One of the things that I always love about what he does is just his simplicity and clarity of teaching financial topics. And I know it goes from budgeting to everything else from there, but it's kind of like the budget is the foundational piece, because if you can get that budget dialed in and learn to use your money the right way toward debt, now we can start turning that into wealth and investments, and it just goes from there. So I really like his approach that way. It's that common sense stuff. And, I remember literally, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's attributed to the snowball, concept of paying off a little credit card and then snowballing it into the others. But also years and years ago, I was in a bad credit card situation when I first got married, and it's been over 26 years. But I remember distinctly going out, and every time we would pay off that little credit card and snowball it up, my wife and I would go out to the backyard and burn that statement, because it's like, okay, we're done. We're not going to ever get, in that situation again. But I just really love what Dave Ramsey stands for. And tell us a little bit about your association with Dave Ramsey as a trusted provider.
Yeah, I've actually been now with Dave Ramsey for about 12 years now. And when we first started, I know that I had to go through a series of different interviews, checking out, making sure that my value system aligns with what Dave Ramsey has to say. Because not everybody out there, like Dave, sometimes there's insurance people, they just want to sell you this and sell you that. But we have to make sure everything that we do, and they check on us every single month consistently to make sure that our value system is what Dave Ramsey would talk about. And I take great pride of that. And I love it because it creates a foundation of core values of who we are, as well as for people who work with us or customers, they know that we will follow what Dave says. And so when we were first, it took us like several months to really get into the program, and it started small, just to check us out, make sure that we're going to do everything correctly. But we soon grew, and they saw the value that clients were so happy being able to do what they needed help with. And they started, giving us more and more territory, different areas. And today, now we operate in 16 different states, wow, helping families with different areas of insurance. When you go to Dave Ramsey's website, asking an area for help, that's where you come to us. And our team follows up to see what we can do to help out in your situation.
So you mentioned that it's rigorous, because I always knew that, like, you can't just put your name in the hat and go, okay, cool, Dave approved me. So I knew that there was rigor, but I didn't realize that there's like really frequent updates. So
Correct.
they're making sure that you are holding their brand name high. So I think that is really, really amazing. So that's awesome, and that just gives us the knowledge that you work from a foundation of trust, ethics, integrity, and teaching, having the heart of a teacher, and not just going, okay, here comes this prospect and we're going to put them in this thing and okay, next. No, you want to learn about the client and what they need and then put them into the right product. So today we're talking about term life insurance. And I think that right there, throws up 19 red flags to people. It's like, oh, I've got life insurance, or I don't think. What are some of the things about life insurance and term life that a lot of people don't realize and that you start helping them to teaching them to understand?
Yeah, I mean, it's always fascinating when I talk to people about it. As you say, I've got insurance, I'm
Yep.
fine. And then when they open up and just share with us what they have, it's kind of sometimes it's a little like Dave Ramsey doing the budget thing. We begin to realize, wow, they could do so much better. I mean, sometimes we realize people just don't realize how affordable term life insurance can be. It's cheaper than it ever has been out there. And then some people think, oh, I've got insurance through my employer, but it only maybe provides only 1 to 2 times your salary. That's nowhere near enough to take care of the family if something goes wrong. And there's just a whole range of just different points, that misconceptions of term life insurance, or even just life insurance as a whole, because there's that whole life situation that and they're just different companies have different rates, and there's different underwriting guidelines for all that. And that's what we do is we step in to make it simple, because we know all the different, we work with various different companies, not just one, to really shop and compare, hey, what's best for you in your situation. And that's part of the reason why Dave Ramsey has this trusted network is insurance is personal, and we personalize that financial insurance plan to where you need to be. Most financial experts like Dave Ramsey and everyone most out there will say you need 10 to 12 times your yearly income in order to take care of that. And, today with inflation, I sometimes I see there's a need even for more than that, given the cost of housing, and just the cost of living. It's very easy eaten up, and so we see more and more people are just basically more underinsured and not knowing how to plan properly to get the right plan that can be affordable for them. Because sometimes they call maybe some of their current insurance company, and their rates may not be that great. Whereas if they could look around and do some comparisons, there are some affordable options there that can help them get the right coverage that's needed. So if an eventful event, one of you passes on, there's some solid, money there to take care of that family.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple points I want to kind of dive in just a touch deeper on, because I think a lot of people have misconceptions when they hear the word e-insurance, like, oh, I've got it, I'm covered, I've got it through my job. They might be insured, but they might be underinsured or not optimally insured. Because, for instance, like you mentioned about the employee insurance, maybe they only have coverage 1 to 2 to 3 or whatever times their salary, and they think in their mind, check the box, I've got insurance, but that's not enough, might not be enough. How about this too? We see this a lot. Mortgage insurance. Oh, hey, here's a coverage that will, and they think they have coverage but it only pays off the balance of the mortgage. Well, that's nice, but maybe that's not all the insurance. So talk a little bit about being underinsured and what you do to help educate your clients on making sure they are properly insured.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, you talk about mortgage. I mean, there are 3 main areas that I see that term life insurance needs to be looked at. Most people, we know that the mortgage, that financial debt, we all think about that, and we all think about, okay, children, great. Until the children get out of the house, then I won't need life insurance.
Yeah.
Well, or when the mortgage is paid for. Well, let's face reality. There's one big major one that most people forget, and it's huge. What about if you lose your spouse is gone? They're the main income earner.
Yeah.
That money that was going into retirement isn't going there anymore. So now, sure, maybe the house is paid for, and maybe there's an education fund for the kids, but there's no money there for, to retire on. And so therefore I see that the really important is, hey, let's make sure not only debt paid for, not only does make sure there's money there to help take care of the kids, but that retirement fund is funded fully so that when the spouse does retire, they can breathe and know that they're going to be okay.
That's a really important piece to keep in mind. It's not just, people can get what's called myopic. They only focus on this one thing. If death happens, then this happens, like mortgage gets paid off or education. But then they don't realize the aspect, like you just said. Ooh, well, if that spouse that was earning income, that was going into the budget that helps us pay the bills, which also helps us fund some retirement. Well, the dominoes start to fall. So I think it really is that broader picture. And don't get mad if I say the word term life or life insurance, Mr. or Ms. Client. Let's just talk about it. Let's just see how it fits. Let's make sure that you're good. And when we finish having this conversation, if all the boxes are checked and you're in the great perfect spot, good, then we know. And I'm not I'm just kind of role playing of how I'm confident that you have the conversations with your clients. I'm not going to push you to do anything. I just want to make sure you're in the right spot.
And that's really it. That's the heart of our company. Yeah. Is when people, just check in, really be transparent about where things are, where they have. And it's sometimes I saw one policy, I don't want to mention the company. We had one last week and it said term 80. And the person's paying super cheap price. And we thought, man, what's up with this? You're 25 years old, term 80, and it was super cheap. And when we looked detailed into the policy, and the client thought, man, I got a great deal, term to age 80. Oh, actually, the policy goes up every single year. Oh, they didn't know this. And so there's hidden things. And we like to do it say, is to check, evaluate, and know. So that way, when you get a good, solid plan in place, and Dave Ramsey talks about in the legacy planning, you can put these things in place and put it in the drawer and know that it's good, and know that there's a good, solid plan for the family in case of, and building that will or that trust and those types of things so that the family is established. And the last thing, there's nothing worse than losing a family member and then on top of that have financial stress. Yes. We're there to take away that financial stress and making sure there's adequate there in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before, term life is cheaper, affordable, all these kind of things. But if it looks to be too good to be true, like in the example you just gave, it looks too cheap or too affordable, maybe have someone give it a second look just to make sure, because man alive, how many times are we doing things online and you get to that long legal thing and it's like, check the box that you read it. Nobody reads that. Well, the same way as these policies, that term 80 your client had, they didn't read or understand all of that. But someone like yourself that can go through and pick up on certain keywords and like, oop, we need to highlight this and go a little bit deeper and look at this. That's so huge. And I think something that also comes to mind too is, people think that a policy, a term life or an insurance policy triggers at death. And you mentioned when someone dies, maybe other things would domino effect, like, you don't have now the income to fund certain other things. But what happens if death doesn't happen? What happens if there's like a, break in income? What if you become ill and it's not a death? Is there any provisions for these kind of policies to help out before death happens?
Majority of term life policies that were written in the last few years, 5 years or more, a lot of them, they just pay out if you die or got 12 months or less to live. And this happened to me with one of my customers about 10 years ago. And it really was heartbreaking. One of my clients were, they got leukemia and they ran a business. And they just said, hey, is there anything in this life policy that we can do? Is there anything? Did you do anything? And I says, well, can you get the doctor to sign off that she's got 12 months or less to live? The doctor refused to put that. And unfortunately, eventually, she passed on and then the policy paid out of death. But in the meantime, they lost their business and everything around them was just taken away. Now, the good news is a lot of the policies that we do now, and I've done it myself for my own policy, it doesn't really cost anything extra. The nice thing, it's free. Is that the new type of term life insurance policies today, they pay out not just if you die, but if you get diagnosed of a critical illness and it's going to affect your life expectancy in any way, they will actually pay out that policy today. And I had that happen to one of my clients. We wrote a policy and they actually said, I don't need this extra living benefits or these health benefits. I'm fine. But we did it anyway. And I'm so thankful they did, because they got approved. They were in good health. But then a few years later, they got cancer and they almost lost their business. But this time the story was 90% of the policy was paid out, and they were to keep their house, their business stayed afloat, and they're in a safe situation today. And they keep calling and say, "We're so thankful that you did that policy for us." And guess what? That was like 4 or 5 years ago. They're still alive today. And that's, they didn't have to die to get the policies. But the new type of term policies today, literally, you could pay the same amount of money that you have for your policy today and have these extra living benefits inside there at no extra charge. And I think that I changed all my term policies over just because I want that benefit. Because the two stories of two families, a family that I saw didn't have the living benefits, and then the story where they did have it. And I want to make sure all the customers have those extra living benefits so that they can enjoy the last moments with their loved ones.
Well, I'm not an insurance expert, but I've heard of that type of living benefit, but I've never heard it associated to the lower priced term policies. It's always for the higher end, more expensive ones. So hearing that they now are available to these policies, that's really exciting. And so let's kind of talk about, you mentioned a couple times underwriting. Okay, that sounds good. Stephen, set me up with one. And underwriting is not the same across different companies. So what are some of the variables, and how do you help your clients navigate through underwriting to make sure they get approved?
Yeah, I mean, so each company is going to look at things differently. And, and that's where it's important for us to get a basic understanding of, hey, what's your health like? Because it is based on, your health. Okay, tobacco usage, any medical conditions and so forth. And that's what for us, we know which companies to go with and which ones just stay away from them. And sometimes people go out there, they get declined or they get severely rated, and then they give up. I face that every day. People they literally just, oh, never mind, forget about this. Well, no, what you need is someone like ourselves who know how to find the company that is more lenient on certain areas. Like some companies, they're okay with someone chewing tobacco, whereas others will say, oh, you're a smoker rate, or someone has, slightly heavier, and they're going to rate them heavily, severely, charge more premium. So we're able to find the right company that can be a fit for your situation. Or maybe you travel around the world a lot, or maybe you're a pilot. There is just various different things that some of us just don't think of, hobbies or habits that can affect life insurance. And for us, we know how to match, the right companies. We work with various different ones to really make sure you're getting the most competitive rate in your situation.
Well, and that makes me think too of like a captured agent versus an independent agent. If you worked for XYZ company, you can only sell their products, whereas you've got multiple options and you're able to find the best policy for your clients. And so that allows you the freedom and flexibility to really bring the best to them.
Yeah. And we find that very common, especially amongst home and auto, where, hey, let's package it all together.
Yeah.
Well, and they say, we give you a discount, failing to realize their rate's more expensive in the first place. So It's not really a discount.
Yep.
And often some of those agents in home and auto, they have a quota. They have to meet so many sales to keep their contract. And they'll do the simplest policy, the cheapest policy there is. And I see this all the time, just because they had to get their policy count and not really taking the time to make sure, hey, is it the right plan for that family?
That's amazing. Well, Stephen, this has been really enlightening. I really appreciate your approach to business and how you care for your clients. If someone is listening to this wanting to have maybe a second opinion or maybe get some more information on term insurance from you, what's the best way they can learn more and reach out and connect with you?
It's a very good question. On our website is a really good way to go. There's a link on our website that says book an appointment. We really talk about scheduling an appointment. And the reason why is because we want to take the time to focus on, spending time with you there. It's rossbrokers.com. That's rossbrokers.com, where you can click on there and, select an appointment there, and we can see what we can do there to help you out.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Excellent. Thank you too.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.